All right, welcome back. We're on Genesis chapter 14. And it came about in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Kedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goim, that they, and then they refers to the four kings just read, made war with Bera, king of Sodom, and with Birsha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, and Shemember, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zor. So what's going on is we've got four kings versus five kings at war with each other. Raiding and conquering kingdoms was part of the world that Abraham now lived in. Verse 3, all these came as allies to the valley of Siddim, that is the Salt Sea. 12 years they had served Kedorlaomer, who was mentioned above as part of the four kings. But the 13th year they rebelled. Verse 5. In the 14th year, Kedorlaomer and the kings that were with him came and defeated Rephaim and Ashertoth Karanaim and the Zuzim in Ham and the Emim in Shevev Kirathaim and the Horites in their Mount Seir as far as El Paran, which is by the wilderness. Then they turned back and came to En Mishpat, that is Kadesh, and conquered all the country of the Amalekites. And the Amalekites didn't exist in Abraham's time, but did when Moses wrote about it. And so Moses could tell the story about this group of people that came about. And also the Amorites, who lived in Hazazonomar. Verse 8, and the king of Sodom, and the king of Gomorrah, and the king of Admah, and the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zor, came out, and they arrayed for battle against them in the valley of Siddim. Verse 9, against Kedorlaomer, the king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goim, and Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar, 4 kings against 5. Now the valley of Siddim was full of tar pits, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, and they fell into them. But those who survived fled to the hill country. Then they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah, and all their food supply, and departed. They also took Lot, Abraham's nephew, and his possessions, and departed, for he was living in Sodom. Then a fugitive came and told Abraham the Hebrew. Now he was living by the oaks of Mamre the Amorite, brother of Eshcol, and brother of Aner, and these were allies with Abraham. Verse 14, when Abraham heard that his relative had been taken captive, he led out his trained men, born in his house, 318, and went in pursuit as far as Dan. He divided his forces against them by night, he and his servants, and defeated them, and pursued them as far as Haboah, which is north of Damascus. He brought back all the goods, and also brought back his relative Lot with his possessions, and also the woman, and all the people. Then, after his return from the defeat of Kedorlaomer and the kings who were with him, the king of Sodom went out to meet him, Abraham, at the valley of Shaveh, that is the king's valley. Verse 18, and Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. Now he was a priest of God Most High. He blessed him and said, blessed be Abraham of God Most High, professor of heaven and earth. And blessed be God Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand. He gave him 1/10 of all. All right, a little side note about this priest Melchizedek here. He was the king of Salem and a priest, and his name meant righteous king. He was a king priest over ancient Jerusalem, and the lack of biographical and genealogical particulars for this ruler allowed for later revelation to use these similarities to Christ, which we see referenced in Psalm chapter 110, in Hebrews chapter 7 and 21. Verse 21, the king of Sodom said to Abram, Give the people to me, and take the goods for yourself. Abraham said to the king of Sodom, I have sworn to the Lord God Most High, professor of heaven and earth, that I will not take a thread or a sandal thong or anything that is yours, for fear you will say, I have made Abraham rich. I will take nothing except what the young men have eaten, and share in the share of the men who went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre. Let them take their share. So what we see here at the end of the chapter is that if Abraham listened to the king of Sodom, the king would have taken credit for Abraham's wealth rather than giving the praise to the Lord who provides all things. Thank you. Please come back for chapter 15 tomorrow. God bless.